Jason Tatum underwent surgery to repair a torn right Achilles tendon. That is obviously a season-ending injury, and you know that's long rehab. You're talking
That's a year.
That's a year.
I don't wish that on anybody. I don't. I hate that Achilles, knees and ankles. I don't like talking about them. I've said it a million times. But screw the Celtics.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Your college performance does not relate to the National Football League. It never does.
They played side by side with each other, and he wasn't as good as Quinn Ewers. That's an issue. That's a major issue.
It wasn't that he wasn't as good as Quinn Ewers.
Ever got to Texas?
It wasn't that he wasn't as good as Quinn Ewers. It was Quinn Ewers' program, which Steve Sarkisian made very clear the entirety of the time that Arch Manning was in Austin. So for you to argue that because Ewers is a 7th-round pick, Arch Manning is not that good and not deserving of being first overall is asinine. It is wrong. It is incorrect.
I told you he's going to be number 1 overall. My whole thing was I'm buying him.
You're doing your thing now where you double down on a take that is incorrect.
The best quarterback prospect to ever hit college football can't play.
He's not so. There were 2 perfectly rated quarterback recruits in the history of the sport.
Quinn Ewers couldn't even play at Ohio State. He couldn't even play at Ohio State.
Quinn Ewers. Go look it up.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune in to Game Time Decisions weekdays on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Lots to get to on today's show, including some breaking news about sports betting coming to Missouri pretty soon. We'll get to that in just a minute. Also recapping the National Basketball Association from last night. One team in the West is moving on. Another team in the East has to wait for another game. Simon Applebaum will join us from the podcast tomorrow. Will be televised. Tell us all about the upfronts going on right now, and what the latest is for the NBA on NBC and also Fox's broadcast, not to mention the National Football League released its schedule last night. So everyone buzzing about that. Bill Bender will join us courtesy of Sporting News. That, some baseball, and some hockey as well on this edition of NewsWire. Let's get started. For those of you who live in the state of Missouri and you're streaming us watching and wondering when can you start betting on sports, you're going to have to wait until almost the end of the football season. An announcement has officially been made. The Missouri Gaming Commission says December 1st is the first official day later this year that you'll be able to wager on sports. You can probably do it online and do it in person in different retail shops, but basically with some requirements that have to be made. There's no possible way that they could get this thing launched for the end of the NBA season and even the beginning of the college and pro football season. But at least it happens before the end of the year. People in Missouri will be able to bet on sports in college and pro football coming at the end of 2025. Meanwhile, yesterday, the National Football League released its full season schedule, which means, of course, lots of videos coming out, some fun, some a little bit boring. I don't know. At least every team tries to do their best job of releasing the upcoming NFL schedule. So many games to, certainly go over. And I'm sure that other shows that are not on for just an hour can dive in a lot more because there's so many games being released. But bottom line is your favorite team has released their NFL schedule. And by the way, the point spreads released yesterday as well. All right, day off for Draymond Green and a season off for Draymond Green now because the Warriors have been eliminated. But either way, he was fined from Game 4 on Tuesday $50,000 and was discussing the spread in an NBA game, 5.5 points, saying that, maybe something had to do with the spread. As you can see, their report coming from ESPN saying he's been fined $50,000. So his vacation this offseason just got a little bit more expensive because the Warriors beat the Timberwolves last night, 121-110. They advanced their second straight Western Conference Finals. The spread was 11, so this is pretty much right on the number. Julius Randle's been fantastic for Minnesota. 29 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. Minnesota never really trailed in this game. In fact, they led by 25 points even as late as the third quarter. Let's hear from Anthony Edwards after the game, who said that a lot of hard work, especially playing in front of the home fans, certainly helped.
Says a lot. I told him today, the most together team and the most mature team is a team that wins around this time. It's not about who get 30 points, who get the most shots, who get all the blame for winning the game, and it's not about none of that. It's about coming together as a team. Can we defend at a high level, and can we limit the other team to one shot? It doesn't really matter about offense, as long as we get good shots, and it don't matter who shoot it. So we did that tonight.
Yeah, I mean, injuries are, part of the playoffs. I learned a long time ago. The playoffs are really about health, and then just guys stepping up and making some big shots, big plays, in key games. That's what decides every series. And so we've been on both ends of that, and it's just part of it. So there's no sense in dwelling on it. And, I don't want to take anything away from what Minnesota just accomplished. So no sense in even talking about Steph.
All right, so Minnesota moves on. Golden State goes home. Now in the East, we're headed to a Game 6 as the Boston Celtics dominated the Knicks, 127-102. Big game for Jaylen Brown. Of course, not having Jason Tatum didn't seem to affect the outcome of this one. 26 points, 12 assists, and 8 rebounds. Jalen Brunson was in foul trouble for most of the game and really affected things at the end because the game was tied 59-59 at halftime. But Boston came alive in the second half, and despite being sort of left for dead, Jaylen Brown after the game talked about not having their key star on the court, but still coming out with a big win.
Went down. A lot of the talk around the team or on the outside felt very final, that things were over. People were talking about next season already, the off season already. Did you guys hear any of that talk? Did that bother you?
I can only speak for myself. I'm not sure about the rest of the guys, but what I will say is I appreciate the fans that showed up tonight. It was a great atmosphere. It was loud, and I know it's easy to kind of write things off. Obviously unfortunate what happened in JT, but we still got basketball to be played. I believe in this group, so, don't count us out just yet.
Jalen, what about the third quarter? I mean, have you ever gotten 5 fouls in a quarter like that? And
5 fouls in one quarter?
Yeah.
How much you want me to say that?
I mean, just how crazy was the quarter? I mean, I guess.
I'm not even going to say anything. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Jalen Brunson wants to keep some of the money in his pocket. Very apparently there. We'll see what happens tomorrow night. Pressure back on the Knicks now to win. They don't want to go back to Boston, regardless of who's on that team for Game 7. All right, all the pressure last night on the Toronto Maple Leafs to sort of dispel any notion that they choke in the big moments. And they did again. Florida Panthers, defending champion on the road, crushed the Maple Leafs 6-1. Boos throughout the stadium. They're now up 3-2 in the best of 7 as the series heads back to Sunrise this weekend. The Panthers scored 3 times in a 7-minute and 53-second span in the second period. And Game 6, as I said, will be in Sunrise. The Panthers could close this one out and head back to the East Finals. Paul Maurice talked about the fast start the team got off to.
Paul, you guys were buzzing early. How important was getting that first goal in the net to sort of open things up there?
It felt important because that game was really fast and well executed by both teams. Up and down the ice early. There's lots of really good execution in that for both teams. So getting the first one was important. I thought it flatlined a little bit after that for us. And then probably where the game doesn't break is Sergei Bobrovsky, right? He's 2 or 3 breakaways a night. So I think he was the pivot point in the way that game went.
Bigger question for the NHL at this point is, could we be headed toward a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup final? It is certainly possible at this point because Edmonton took care of the Vegas Knights last night 1-0, so they're headed to the Western Conference Finals. Stuart Skinner, the goaltender for Edmonton, has pitched 2 straight shutouts in goal for the Oilers. And quite frankly, they got a really good shot to go back to the finals. Here's Connor McDavid on the win.
I thought it was great. I thought everyone dug in really hard. I thought Stu was great, bailed us out whenever we had a breakdown. The kill was great. Defensively really, really good.
What does Stu coming in and pitching 2 straight shutouts in such important games, a series clincher, mean to this team?
Well, hopefully it shuts a lot of people up that were talking about him, first and foremost. But, we've always had belief in him, comes in and pitches 2 shutouts. Can't say enough good things.
So right now, Edmonton will await the winner, which probably is the Dallas Stars of the next series, and we'll see where things go from there. All right, in Major League Baseball, one big winning streak in the National League comes to an end, and one continues in the American League. We'll start off with the one that came to an end yesterday, St. Louis Cardinals. They split a doubleheader with Philadelphia, and so their 9-game winning streak is officially over. The Phillies won Game 1 2-1. The Cardinals ended up winning the second game by a final of 14-7. In addition, we have the Shohei Ohtani show continuing last night against the A's. LA now 16-4 at home, and the Dodgers beat the A's 9-3. Xander Bogaerts hit a 3-run home run in the first inning. They beat the Angels, and the final score was 5-1. Also at the PGA Championship, which is currently underway right now, the clubhouse leader, well, there are actually 3 with 4 under par, but Luke Donald has had the best day thus far. He's through 14, 4 under par at the moment. Bill Bender will join us talking some football next.
Vegas knows how to show love to our everyday heroes. So if you're a first responder, you are in for some perks. Lots of hotels and casino offer big discounts to any first responders who can show valid work or volunteer ID. So treat yourself to a discounted stay. You deserve it. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Still underdogs at home, on the road, and all of these games. It's time for people to start understanding it's a legitimate team that has a chance not only to win the series against Cleveland, but also maybe even go all the way to the NBA Finals.
I think a lot of the focus has been on why the Cavs have not played particularly well. A lot of that is due to injury, of course, but I think that's taking too much credit away from what the Pacers have done.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Derek Carr has called it a career after 11 NFL seasons.
I think they knew before the draft that they had to make a move at this point. And by the way, Derek Carr did have a pretty good career. Made as many Pro Bowls as Eli Manning. So based on that, he should go to the Hall of Fame like Eli Manning. Well, Eli Manning does have a couple rings at that point, but always wanted to take a shot at Manning, who should not actually be in the Hall of Fame. Shouldn't be questioned an under 500 quarterback for his career. Stop the man.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that rim. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple 15.5 points live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
NFL schedule release day was yesterday. We got our first view of the full slate of NFL games. Point spreads out as well for week 1. Let's check in with Bill Bender from Sporting News. And, Bill and I will be, chopping up some college football talk here pretty soon. I feel like, here we are in May. The first games, I believe, are the 23rd of August, if I'm not mistaken, in college. That means 100 days till then. That means Bill becomes a regular part of our show again. Really, when you think about it, starting next month. Bill, thanks for coming back on. Good to see you.
Yeah, I know we're going to talk NFL today, but I can't help but peek at that week 1 schedule, Craig, when you got Texas, Ohio State, LSU, Clemson. The game times are starting to filter out, and I can't wait for the season to talk to you each and every week and see what your thoughts are on that Notre Dame-Miami matchup in week 1. See, I had to sneak that one in.
May take Notre Dame for the first time in a while. Miami. I don't know. We could do football and college football another day. Today, our day with Bill is to cover the NFL schedule. And, so, look, this comes out, and honestly, there's not a lot to mentally retain from this outside of maybe some of the holidays. It's like it comes out, and then the games look cool, and then we forget. And then in 3 months, we check back in, and then we remember. But the one thing that everyone does look forward to is hearing what games will be played on Thanksgiving. So let's go through those just here for a minute. The Lions, the Cowboys, and it does feel at this point that the Ravens are officially the night Thanksgiving team because they just keep playing on Thanksgiving. So this is it. They're at home. The Lions play the Packers, so certainly good matchup there. They got the Chiefs back on Thanksgiving this year. We'll see how good the Cowboys are. And at least from the stuff I read, it seems like there's a lot of backing on the Bengals this season, having a easier schedule, a team that really could have made the playoffs and made a deep run. They just got off to a bad start. They'll take on the Ravens. So what do you make of these 3 games, Bill? I mean, to me, probably 7 points or less in terms of spread, but it's just so far away. We have no idea what could happen before then.
Well, yeah, as far as a Thanksgiving slate of games, this is as good as it gets. You start with Detroit and Green Bay. The Lions have won 6 of the last 8 matchups between those teams, and Dan Campbell's kind of taking control of that rivalry, which had belonged to the Packers through the 90s, 2000s, and even the 2010s. So, and that you got to figure there'll be some NFC North implications there. I love that they're putting the Chiefs on Thanksgiving against the Cowboys. The Cowboys have won their last 3 Thanksgiving games, but they haven't been great opponents. Now you throw Patrick Mahomes into the mix and you get him down in Dallas. That ought to be fun. And Bengals Ravens is as good as it gets too, because like you said, I think the Bengals are in store for a huge bounce back season. The games with the Ravens are always competitive. I know the Ravens won both matchups last year. The one in Baltimore came down to the last play. It's a great slate. I can't wait for all 3 of those games.
All right, so in terms of win percentage, this sort of irks me a little bit because so much changes over the course of the season with injuries and everything else. But based off last year's strength of schedule, if you're a believer in this, the 49ers have the easiest schedule in the NFL with a 415 winning percentage. The Saints, 419. I'm not sure that's going to matter for them this year. They're not very good, and probably not very much for the Patriots either, although maybe they make a little bit of a step. I don't see them winning 11, 12 games or anything like that. So let's focus here for starters on the 49ers here, Bill. Just a season last year that was a huge disappointment. Injuries again, certainly, and not a team that did a ton of revamping in the offseason. It feels like a run it back year and just hopefully keep their guys healthy because that's really what doomed them last year.
For sure. And that combination of the schedule of the 3 teams that are on that list, I think the 49ers are in store for a huge bounce back season. They only play 3 teams that made the postseason last year. The games against the Rams are going to be tough. They do play the Buccaneers, and having that NFC South, AFC South combination on the schedule should help, the Texans being the 3rd playoff team on that list. So if you're looking for a win total bounce back team, you said it. The reason they slipped last year was the injuries. It became too much to overcome. A healthy 49ers team can get right back in the NFC Championship mix.
Yeah, without a doubt. All right, so on the flip side, the harder schedules go to the Giants. I'm sure they're not loving that, but their division was just really good. So playing Philadelphia a couple of times and playing Washington a couple of times, that's going to hurt you just from the start. The Bears also have a tougher schedule than they did last year, and so do the Lions, and they're really good, so not sure that that's going to matter a ton. But looking at it here, it's really make or break season kind of, and I hate to say it for Detroit. I mean, they've gone from the underdog and the darling and the team that's fun to watch to ending the season in disappointment. And so I guess I would ask you this, Bill, is anything less than a Super Bowl going to be satisfactory for this team this year?
I think they got to make that push. I don't know that it's now or never time because they are very good and they've got a lot of pieces in place through the draft that Dan Campbell keeps them going. Interested to see how they respond to not having both coordinators, Ben Johnson to Chicago, Aaron Glenn to the Jets, and all of those NFC North teams it's going to be tougher this year. So I'm not selling on the Bears, but I'm telling you, their schedule's difficult. They are playing all those AFC North teams. When the AFC North and the NFC North get together, those are tight games. They're going to be fun games, but playing the Ravens, the Steelers, the Bengals, even the Browns won't be easy for the Bears. So, I mean, you look at that, and then they're playing the NFC East on top of it. So Detroit may go to the Super Bowl, but I don't think they're going to win as many games as they did last year, or the Vikings, Packers, or Bears.
Yeah, it is. It is a tough division there. Really, interesting odds here put up over on FanDuel on Travis Hunter. And I just don't know how any of this really is possible, but he's got odds to win both the offensive and defensive rookie of the year at 80-1. Like, I mean, I don't even know that I would even consider $1 on that bet. It seems like impossible to me. Certainly could win one of these, offensive or defensive, and probably will play enough to qualify to win this award. But man, that seems like a tall order.
Really does. And I would probably bet on the offensive side if I were to do it, because defense, you have to get interceptions, pass breakups, tackles, all of the above. And that defensive player of the year, it could just as easily go to somebody that gets 5 or 6 sacks. So if you're going to do that, try the offensive side. If they play him there enough, he could be one of the leading receivers in Jacksonville. But to your point, it seems like a little bit of a tricky bet to do that.
I agree. Bill, great to catch up with you. Thanks for coming on NewsWire. And I know that we'll be talking soon. Thanks again.
Hey, no problem. Thank you.
An update on the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow is next with Brady Kannon. So stay with us here on Sports. We'll be right back.
Vegas knows how to show love to our everyday heroes. So if you're a first responder, you are in for some perks. Lots of hotels and casino offer big discounts to any first responders who can show valid work or volunteer ID. So treat yourself to a discounted stay. You deserve it. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
But still underdogs at home, on the road, and all of these games. It's time for people to start understanding it's a legitimate team that has a chance not only to win the series against Cleveland, but also maybe even go all the way to the NBA Finals.
I think a lot of the focus has been on why the Cavs have not played particularly well. A lot of that is due to injury, of course, but I think that's taking too much credit away from what the Pacers have done.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Derek Carr has called it a career after 11 NFL seasons.
I think they knew before the draft that they had to make a move at this point. And by the way, Derek Carr did have a pretty good career, made as many Pro Bowls as Eli Manning. So based on that, he should go to the Hall of Fame like Eli Manning. Well, Eli Manning does have a couple rings at that point, but always wants to take a shot at Manning, who should not actually be in the Hall of Fame. Shouldn't be questioned an under 500 quarterback for his career. Stop the man.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that roof. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of 18.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Let's bring in Brady Kannon of SportsGrid. The PGA Championship is live and underway from Quail Hollow. So let's get a quick update here on the leaderboard and talk about what we've seen thus far. Brady, approximately 50% of the players playing in the PGA Championship have officially teed off here. And again, what have we learned? Not a lot. There's still a long way to go here, but we do have a few players here that are at the top. I'm not seeing any huge scores here, by the way, through 14, 15 holes, like no one 8, 9 under par. So that tells me it's playing a little bit tough. And also some names here at the top that are obviously clearly unexpected, at least thus far, going into the weekend.
Yeah, especially the guy right at the very top, Luke Donald, who got a special invitation to play in this major championship. Of course, a former world number one, the Ryder Cup captain for the European side. At 47 years old, is 4 under par and leading the 2025 PGA Championship. We'll see how long that lasts. Right there was Steven Yeager, who is certainly a very good modern day player and one that I considered for first round leader. He's very good at getting off to a hot start. Unfortunately, I did not hit submit on him for a first round leader. Our colleague Cam Stewart does have a first round leader play on Ryan Fox, who was one shot back, the winner last week at the Myrtle Beach Classic, the alternate event, while the rest of the field or the rest of the guys on tour were playing the signature event. So yeah, you're right, Craig. I think there's a couple scores out there, but nothing crazy. It is very warm and humid. We're in the high 70s. We could get to the low to mid 80s before the day is through as far as the high temperature. Not a ton of wind in the area. Looks like it'll pick up a little bit in the afternoon, but the ball is really flying with the temperatures and not a lot of wind and the humidity in the air. The ball is really jumping off the club. And I think today is probably going to be the easiest day for scoring, because that effect of the rain that we've had early in the week is keeping these fairways soft. The greens are still soft, and the greens are really part of the story because they have those sub-air systems. They can suck that moisture out of the green surfaces. And I think over the course of the next 3 days, they're just going to get firmer and firmer. So, get your scores now, because those greens, I believe, are going to get tougher and tougher to hold as the week goes on.
All right, so we talked about some of the players at the top. Now let's go to some of the players at the bottom. And this, from a betting perspective, really stinks. Like, if you go out there and you put yourself out on a limb and you got a guy halfway through the day, 3, 4, 5 under par, you're certainly not feeling good. So let's take a look at that real quick, Brady. And the names that I see at the bottom, Phil Mickelson, who, at this point, I mean, honestly, it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody given how long he's been playing at a high level in the PGA Tour and Live Golf. He's 3 over par, but I guess the biggest surprise for me is seeing Brooks Koepka this far over par to start the first day.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean, this is a guy that has won the PGA Championship twice, most recently just a couple of years ago in 2023. He's now 5 over par, and that's through just 12 holes. So, I mean, he could end up this day 6, 7, 8 over par to start his PGA Championship. And, I think the Live, we've talked about this throughout the week. Jon Rahm's off to a pretty decent start. Last time I looked, he was 1 under par. But there's a couple of guys on the Live Tour that I think the bloom is off the rose, and they're kind of done with that. And I think maybe Koepka is the guy that's leading that charge. I think he'd probably really like to be back on the PGA Tour right now. I think this is evidence that, like, maybe he's not really preparing for the major championships like he used to. I'm not sure. This is all speculation, but interesting to see him out to a start like he is at 5 over par. He was that close to making the cut at the Masters, but ended up making a quadruple bogey, I believe it was, on the 18th hole on Friday at Augusta, and missed the cut by 3 or 4 shots. So, the way he's off to a start right now, it looks like 2 straight majors to start 2025 that Brooks Koepka would be missing the cut. They say you can't win the tournament on Thursday, but you can certainly lose it. Koepka at 5, true. The defending champion Schauffele at 2 over par, Rory at 1 over par, Scheffler at even, Shane Lowry at 3 over par, and Patrick Cantlay at 4 over par.
Yeah, I mean, those guys definitely have their work cut out for them, no doubt, and certainly a lot of players teeing off over the next hour or so. Full updates coming up later today here on SportsGrid, on Pharrell Coast to Coast, and out on Smiley Kaufman's show coming up next here at noon. Brady, enjoy the PGA Championship this weekend. I'm sure that you'll have a close eye on it, as I will as well. We'll recap it with you next week. Thanks for coming on.
Sounds great, Craig. Have a great day.
All right, Brady Kannon here with us. Read his column about the PGA Championship, by the way, over at golf.com. All right, coming up next, Adam Kaufman will join us. Adam's Celtics have given him something to watch coming up on Friday night. And they win another one.
your college performance does not relate to the National Football League. It never
They
does.
played side by side
DRS.
with each other, and he wasn't as good as Quinn Ewers. That's an issue. That's a major issue.
It wasn't that it wasn't as good as Quinn
they've ever
Ewers.
got to Texas.
It wasn't that it wasn't as good as Quinn Ewers. It was Quinn Ewers' program, which Steve Sarkisian
Why
made
would it be
very
Quinn
clear
Ewers'
the entirety of the time that Arch Manning was in Austin. So for you to argue that because Ewers is a 7th-round pick, Arch Manning is not that good and not deserving of being first overall is asinine. It is wrong.
I
It is
just told
incorrect.
you he's going to be number 1 overall. My whole thing was I'm
you're
buying
doing
him
your
because
thing now
I
where you
expect him to
double
have a
down on a
decent
take
season. No, I'm
that
not
is
doing that.
incorrect
The
when I
best
show it's
quarterback
incorrect.
prospect to ever hit college football can't play
He's
over
not,
a 7th-round
There were
pick
two
who didn't even
perfectly
play
rated
good.
quarterback
Stop
recruits
it.
in the history
Stop
of the
it.
sport.
Quinn
Vince
Ewers couldn't even
Young
play at
and
Ohio
Quinn
State.
Ewers.
He couldn't even play at
Vince
Ohio
Young
State.
and Quinn Ewers. Go look it up.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune in to Game Time Decisions weekdays on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I know where Adam Kaufman will be on Friday night. Going to be watching an NBA game. I wasn't even sure if that was going to be the case. Let's bring him in because the Celtics are headed to a very big Game 6 against the New York Knicks. Adam, thanks again for coming on the show. No Jason Tatum, no problem. At least one game for the Celtics. Jaylen Brown picked up the slack. He had 26 points. And the series odds, by the way, have been like cut in half off one result here, which you don't see happen that often. But now all of a sudden, it feels like at the very least, if Boston can somehow scratch out a win in New York, that they may actually have a shot to win this series without their best player, which is kind of crazy.
Well, I love that you said you know where I'm going to be Friday night because I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm supposed to choose between watching Game 6 and going to a 40th birthday party. So I'm having a real hard time about how I'm going to handle the end of this week. But look, the Celtics win, and Brady Kannon was obviously just on the show. He is a big proponent of the fallen hero theory, which of course means, you know, you lose your star player and the team responds in kind the next game. My feeling going into last night's game was we were going to see a Celtics win followed by a Knicks win on Friday at MSG to put away this series. But I mean, admittedly, and to your point, it's a little hard to know right now. I don't want to mess around with the odds. I don't want to invest in the series price for Boston to come back and win. If I was going to do that, I would have done it going into Game 5. Like you said, there's, you know, less value at this point in time. You know, the Celtics team, admittedly, and it's going to sound like I'm taking away from the superstardom of Jason Tatum, and I'm not. He is an elite player. He is at least pre-injury a top 5 player in the MVP or league. He's perennially in the MVP conversation. As you know, I fumble all over myself, and he is someone that the offense runs through. And sometimes, and we've seen it in this series, sometimes that is to a fault. Sometimes there's a little too much ISO. Sometimes there's a little too much shooting early in the shot clock and that type of thing. And what we saw from the Celtics last night was, and obviously a blowout win, just another very kind of playing with house money, carefree mentality. We're going to, you know, see if we can get hot from 3, which obviously they did. They hit 22 3-pointers, but we're going to lean on our role guys more so. Now, Jaylen Brown, he had an excellent game, and he is not a role player. He is a star in his own right, but Derek White, Luke Cornett, Drew Holiday, some of these guys that had really, really strong games to help lift Boston over the hump. And I'll tell you what, given the fact that we have seen Boston lead by at least 14 points in every game this series, 20 plus in 4 out of the 5, yeah, it is repeatable. So it's hard to count them out right now.
And by the way, the Knicks are 2-point favorites on Friday night, which is, you know, sort of saying something. It's not a ton being at home in their biggest game in decades. I mean, we said that last week, but it's again this week. I mean, it really is. And I'll tell you something else that I don't agree with here. is the odds to win the Eastern Conference. Like, I mean, the Knicks could very easily win. I cannot believe that the Knicks have the same odds as the Pacers here. I mean, I guess what they're telling me is the Knicks are going to be favored to win this series, but Indiana, to me, I mean, from what I see, is the better team between these two. And by the way, if the Knicks win Game 6, they're going to be, minus 105 to win the Eastern Conference or something like that. So I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm missing something there. I guess I don't watch as closely as I should. All right, now let's get to the West.
By the way, just real quick, I would invest in Indiana right now to win the East, given those odds, because you're right. If and when New York beats Boston, those odds are going to shift. The Knicks are going to become a favorite, and I believe that if we see Indiana against New York, the Pacers are going to win that series. So, and honestly, I don't think it's going to be that difficult a series. Maybe it goes 6. I don't see it going 7. I know that sounds like I'm just sitting here slighting the Knicks, but the Pacers are playing really good basketball right now. They're deep, they're healthy, they get a chip on their shoulder, they're never out of games, they're incredibly resilient. I like them as it stands right now, with the Celtics dinged up, obviously, more so, to go out there and represent the Eastern Conference in the NBA Finals. I don't think they'll win. I think the winner's ultimately going to be from OKC and Denver, that series, but I like Indiana to be there.
Yeah, no, and look, by the way, it takes nothing away from the Knicks. Even if they win this series and lose in the next round, I still think it's a successful season for them. No one would ever have beef with that. Indiana, to me, is that team of destiny, at least in the conference. They just look unflappable in every series they play. Yep. All right, so this was easy, to predict. It's just the odds were just incredible to make Minnesota 11-point favorites in a playoff game. They had to do it, and they landed kind of right on the number. I guess the biggest surprise of the series is not so much the injuries and everything that happened to the Warriors, but it's the emergence of Julius Randle, who has now become such a focal point of what Minnesota is going to do moving forward. And look, Minnesota is live right now to get to the championship. I don't think there's any doubt, but they just, fortunately for them, they didn't really have to get tested over the last couple days.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kicking myself, if I'm being honest, because Golden State took game 1 of that series, and I have been screaming ever since that the Warriors were not going to win another game in that set. And Minnesota, very quickly, and it moved quite a bit overnight after that game 1, considerably, actually. It moved about $3. But they were plus 110 in some places to win that series, which to me was egregious. And again, you wake up the next morning, and it was right around minus 200. But what I wish I had done was invest in the Wolves to, the correct score, to win the series 4-1. Because once we found out that Steph was unlikely to play again in this series, meaning at the earliest we were going to see him was game 6, I have been telling anyone who would listen that, well, you're not going to see him because there isn't going to be a game 6. The Warriors are not going to win another game. And yeah, it got a little, testy at times for sure, but Minnesota ultimately did just that. Won last night going away, covered the number. The Timberwolves are playing, I'll say, good basketball. I don't feel like they're playing great basketball. I think Julius Randle, to your point, is playing great basketball. I feel like we definitely have still not seen the best of Anthony Edwards. We have not seen nearly enough out of the role players. I mean, Naz Reid has been inconsistent. Dante DiVincenzo has given you nothing so far here. And, not that he's known for his offense, but I'd like to see a little bit more out of Rudy Gobert. That's why I believe that, if, let's say, Denver has the ability to come back down 3-2, knock off OKC, I still take the Nuggets over the Timberwolves. And a lot of people on Twitter screaming at me, how can you say that? The Timberwolves have won like 5-6 straight games against the Nuggets, but I don't know. To me, sometimes you feel like you can see a team like playing with its food, not taking games seriously. Lord knows the Celtics had those moments against the Knicks early in the series. I don't feel like Minnesota played a particularly good series despite the gentleman's sweep against Golden State. And that is a team, minus Steph Curry, that they should have destroyed each and every game. It just, honestly, it has me lose faith in the Timberwolves going forward.
Yeah, and Adam, it's just the truth with the Timberwolves. They're playing down and playing up all season long. They're beating the best teams in the NBA in the season and losing to the worst over the course of the season. It's just the way that they've played. Okay, so I think the odds makers have to make OKC this favorite tonight, a 4.5. Although if Denver does win, we go to 7 games. But I get it, because if the Thunder get hot, they're going to win by 40, and you can't make Denver a favorite at home. You can't make the Thunder a dog against anybody right now. So that's the line, 4.5, total 216. What do you anticipate happens tonight? I think you'll probably know the outcome of this game at halftime. If OKC just gets super hot, they're going to win. If not, Denver will push it to 7.
So I screwed around with and this is like, hot dog money, as Brady would tell you. I didn't put any real money on this, but I screwed around. I put a little 2-leg parlay together of the Nuggets to win tonight and the Celtics to win tomorrow, both at plus money, and obviously got almost 5-1 odds on that. I'm not counting out the Nuggets. I'm not. I don't want the -4.5 for OKC. For me, it's either Denver with the points or pass. I understand what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. If OKC gets hot, this won't even be a game. But I think playing in the altitude is relevant. I think the Thunder are obviously still as good as they are, as deep as they are. They're a little bit new to this. You have championship experience there on the Nuggets side, and Jokic is an absolute killer, especially late in games. I think Denver is still live to win this one.
All right, Brady, great stuff as always. Good luck Friday night. We'll talk again next week.
Look forward to it.
We'll be right back with Simon Applebaum.
Your college performance does not relate to the National Football League. It never
They
does.
played side by side
Yes.
with each other, and he wasn't as good as Quinn Ewers. That's an issue. That's a major issue.
It wasn't
the
that
best
it wasn't as
quarterback
good as
prospect
Quinn
they've ever
Ewers.
got to Texas.
It wasn't that it wasn't as good as Quinn Ewers. It was Quinn Ewers' program, which Steve Sarkisian
Would it be
very
Quinn
clear
Ewers'
the entirety of the time that Arch Manning was in Austin. So for you to argue that because Ewers is a 7th-round pick, Arch Manning is not that good and not deserving of being first overall is asinine. It is wrong.
I
It
just
is
told
incorrect.
you he's going to be number 1 overall. My whole thing was I'm
you're
buying
doing
him
your
because
thing now
I
where you
expect him to
double
have a
down on a
decent
take
season. No, I'm
that
not
is
doing that.
incorrect
The
when I
best
show it's
quarterback
incorrect.
prospect to ever hit college football can't play
He's
over a
not, though.
7th-round
There were
pick
two
who didn't even
perfectly
play
rated
good.
quarterback
Stop
recruits
it.
in the
Stop
history of
it.
the sport.
Quinn
Vince
Ewers couldn't
Young
even play at
and
Ohio
Quinn
State.
Ewers.
He couldn't even play at
Vince
Ohio
Young
State.
and Quinn Ewers. Go look it up.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune in to Game Time Decisions weekdays on SportsGrid.
It's been a very busy week for Simon Applebaum, and you can hear all about the media podcast tomorrow will be televised. We'll see how much we can squeeze into this segment here as the upfronts are going on right now in New York, which tells us a lot more about broadcast plans for the major companies. For those of you who are not familiar, let's bring in Simon. Simon, great to have you here on the show. So without further ado, I turn it over to you, starting with this latest mega content service from ESPN. Dropping $30 a month gets you what exactly?
Quite a lot, Craig. And by the way, we will have an exclusive tomorrow be televised episode 3 o'clock this afternoon on TalkShoe, Facebook, YouTube, dealing with what took place with the upfronts this week and the new fronts last week. Well, what ESPN announced on Tuesday morning was ESPN The Bundle. It's hard to believe they didn't call it ESPN All Access. What it basically is a bundle aimed at viewers who have turned off cable, who have turned off broadcast, and what you get for that $29, $30 a month is you get all the ESPN networks, you get the ESPN presentations on ABC without having to watch ABC, you get ESPN Plus, and you get interactive features like we were talking about for a long time: sports betting, the ability to place bets on the air, the ability to do fantasy football. And incidentally, those interactive features were not talked about at ESPN's press conference or at the Disney Upfront later on Tuesday. There's a lot they need to explain about. They did not do a very good job in terms of letting the journalists know there was a press conference or to talk about the interactive features. So I have a hunch we may hear another event by ESPN to really explain what this is all about. It's amazing to me that they're calling this ESPN. It might confuse some people, but basically this is the ESPN All Access, and that I think should have been the title of the service.
Yeah, I mean, $30. I don't know. We'll see how many people subscribe to it. I know it's cheaper over the course of the year. Okay, so more folks will be tuned in this fall to NBC, not just for their coverage of football and other sports, but certainly now for the NBA, as they have this bundle with Peacock, and also the NBA is going to be broadcasting on Amazon Prime. They started, naming some of their announcers. They dropped the big news that Michael Jordan, in some way, part of this, which is sort of stunning to me, Simon, given the fact this guy doesn't need another dollar for the rest of his life. But what do you make of sort of this announcement by the NBA? And, of course, bringing back Round Ball Rock. That was the only important announcement.
Yeah, absolutely. People loved it when John Tesh at NBC Universal's Upfront Racing Music Hall on Monday morning was on stage with his keyboard with a 55-piece symphony orchestra do Round Ball Rock, which, yes, it will be the theme of the NBA on NBC starting this fall. Yes, Mike Tirico is calling games. He was there, by the way, on stage. Noah Eagle is going to be calling games as well. Michael Jordan will be a special contributor. And something you didn't hear about is that Peacock, when they do their games, are going to have some interactive features. For example, let's say that Peacock has a game, with maybe simulcast NBC or exclusive to them, and you come in late. You'll be able, through Peacock, to jump in and catch the game. Plus, they're going to be doing some interactive features, including the ability to play a bingo-like fantasy basketball game. You'll be able to catch stats involving specific players or specific teams. And starting the second half of the season, 2026, when Peacock has exclusive games, they will have a multi-view type feature called Courtside Live. So you can get live shots of the shoot-arounds, the players being introduced, other stuff that happens pre-game, some of the stuff happening post-game, and all that stuff. I think it's a fascinating feature, Courtside Live, similar to what Peacock does with the Olympics on Gold Zone. I think these interactive features could provoke Peacock to become more of a destination for the NBA. And we'll see if Amazon Prime Video, with their games, decides to do similar interactive features, given what Amazon can do. Plus, let's not forget that NBC and Peacock and Amazon will also be covering on this new contract WNBA games as well, starting next year.
All right, so where does this leave NBA TV? Where does this leave Warner Brothers? Turner and TNT. I mean, they can only air The Big Bang Theory so many times here, Simon. Like I don't know what they're going to do as far as sports is concerned. I mean, we'll always have TV and have some of the NCAA tournament broadcasts, I guess, next March. But what do they do until then?
Well, as Warner Brothers Discovery tried to show at their upfront at Madison Square Garden yesterday morning, there is life in sports beyond the NBA. For example, they've got Major League Baseball on TBS. They're going to run the FIFA Club World Cup in English. That's coming up this summer. They're going to be having the Big 12 and Big East basketball and football, by the way. They'll be running this fall and this winter. They will have other soccer games as well involving the U.S. men's and women's national teams. So they will have quite a lot of sports. And basically their message is, life is beyond the NBA. We're past that. Now it's on to try to get other things going and to give them more promotion, more exposure.
All right, finally, we've been hearing about this for a long time. Vizio with their new My Hub smart TV feature. Simon, you've been breaking it down for us for months. When is this launching?
Well, imagine this. You watch Vizio. You have a personalized space on your smart TV set, smart device to get, let's say, your favorite sports highlights and games, your home videos, your photos, other TV programming. And you can get offers, let's say like this, let's say from DraftKings or FanDuel. In the next hour, if you place a bet on our services, you'll get, let's say, $5 off the bet, and maybe you get 2 or 3 free bets afterward. All you got to do is use your voice remote to make it happen. This may be the future of personalized television, personalized interactive TV, starting with Vizio, which is now owned by Walmart. And if this works, which will be launched out this summer, you may see every single smart TV set maker do similar personalized hubs. And this may be one of the major ways that you will play sports bets on your TV set.
Well, Simon will catch the podcast today. What time you dropping this afternoon?
3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific on TalkShoe, Facebook, YouTube. We'll have Adweek TV reporter Selena Blackafleur on, and we'll also have one of the vice presidents of the Interactive Ad Bureau that ran the New Fronts last week. So that's all at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific.
All right, Simon, thanks again for coming on NewsWire. I really appreciate it.
Great, Craig. Take care. Enjoy the basketball and the golf, by the way, this weekend.
Yeah, and Major League Baseball getting started here at about 12:15. We've got the red-hot Atlanta Braves finally back in the mix here, taking on the Washington Nationals, followed by the Twins and Orioles. That game begins at 12:35 Eastern. White Sox and Reds at 12:40, and then the rest of the games a little bit later today. For those of you who want to stream our programming, it's completely free. You don't need anything except for internet access, and we all have that. If you're watching this, of course you do. Just download the SportsGrid app, scan this QR code. Available now for both iOS and Android, streaming information, sports data, and everything more. The SportsGrid app, download it with that QR code right there. We'll be back to wrap things up with some last licks, tell you why the Colts social media team's in some trouble. Don't go away.
Your college performance does not relate to the National Football League. It never
They
does.
played side
Yes,
by side
yes.
with each other, and he wasn't as good as Quinn Ewers. That's an issue. That's a major issue.
It wasn't
the
that
best
it wasn't as
quarterback
good as
prospect
Quinn
they've ever
Ewers.
got to Texas.
It wasn't that it wasn't as good as Quinn Ewers. It was Quinn Ewers' program, which Steve Sarkisian
Why
made
would it be
very
Quinn
clear the
Ewers' program?
entirety of the time that
No.
Arch Manning was in Austin. So for you to argue that because Ewers is a 7th-round pick,
Quinn
Arch
Ewers'
Manning is
team.
not that good and not deserving of being first overall is
Yes.
asinine. It is wrong.
I
It
just
is
told
incorrect.
you he's going to be number one overall. My whole thing was I'm
you're
buying
doing
him
your
because
thing now
I
where you
expect him to
double
have a
down on a
decent
take
season. No, I'm
that
not
is
doing that.
incorrect
The
when I
best
show it's
quarterback
incorrect.
prospect to ever hit college football can't play
He's
over
not
a 7th-round
There were
pick
two
who didn't even
perfectly
play
rated
good.
quarterback
Stop
recruits
it.
in the history
Stop
of the
it.
sport.
Quinn
Vince
Ewers couldn't
Young
even play at
and
Ohio
Quinn
State.
Ewers.
He couldn't even play at
Vince
Ohio
Young
State.
and Quinn Ewers. Go look it up.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune in to Game Time Decisions weekdays on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid as we wrap up the show. Those of you who caught the release videos posted on the social media content for NFL teams, one is under fire a little bit more than others, I think, for making a joke that did not go over that well. Also, for the first time this week, we even mentioned the Preakness mistakes, and also a quarterback signs with the Saints. Time now for some last licks. All right, this is a name that many people may not be familiar with. This is a quarterback who played in college football at Iowa State. His name is Hunter Dekkers. Unfortunately, the reason why you may have heard the name Hunter Dekkers is either one of two reasons. Either you're a fan of Iowa State, or you may remember the story that we told you a couple of years ago where Dekkers, along with some other players in NCAA, were found to have bet on sports. Now, Dekkers in particular was one of those who was found to have bet on college football, and also one to have found that he bet on his own team, which of course you can't do. And then Dekkers was banned for life by the NCAA, couldn't play college football anymore. But guess what? After moving around a little bit and trying to get himself figured out, he did sign a contract with, guess who? The New Orleans Saints. So I guess Derek Carr's retirement sort of led to this possibility happen. Now, also, let's not get too crazy here. Keep in mind, every team goes into summer camp in June and the OTAs and then into the preseason with more than 3 quarterbacks. Sometimes teams have 5. Cleveland, I know, is trying to figure out their 4 or 5 too. So Deckers will enter the quarterback room with the Saints. And honestly, for him, I'm kind of hoping that it goes well because he's going to get a chance to play in the preseason and in training camp, and maybe will not be just known as that guy to be banned from the NCAA for betting. But obviously, they got to make an example of some of these kids. Kids, if you're playing college sports, you can't bet, let alone bet on your own team. You just can't do it. Wait till you're done. Okay, tough scene for the Indianapolis Colts and whoever put their video together and social media team as well. Now, for those of you who have not yet familiar, several years ago, a couple of teams in the National Football League put together what we would call as release videos, showing all the games that they're going to play against their opponents in the National Football League's upcoming season, which was released yesterday. Now, every team in the NFL does it. So the Indianapolis Colts released their video yesterday, and they tried to be funny in some different ways. One of the ways that they tried to be funny was week 1 of their upcoming NFL season. The Colts are going to be at home and they're taking on the Miami Dolphins. So the first part of their video depicted Tyreek Hill, who the Colts are playing against, on the Miami Dolphins in the water, and police and the Coast Guard arresting him. Not the best idea. Now, we all know Tyreek Hill has had a lot of issues off the field, okay? Like too many to even count. And some happened last year, some happened in the offseason. In fact, honestly, they haven't stopped. Tyreek Hill always seems to be going through something. But yeah, the social media team, they took this down. And also this morning, by the way, issued an apology saying that they, I guess, went too far on that joke and also may have went too far on some of the rights because of using Minecraft. I'm not really sure exactly what that all means with Microsoft. I don't get it. But either way, I mean, I don't know if Tyreek Hill, by the way, is going to even be available to the play for the Dolphins in week 1 or week 2 of the season. But if he is, you can expect some serious revenge and rivalry going on with the Dolphins and Colts after that. No longer available, but once you post that thing online, everybody gets to see it. All right, the president over at Pimlico made a very big statement this week, which could change the face of horse racing. Now, for those of you who are not familiar, I don't blame you. This weekend is the Preakness Stakes at Pimlico in Baltimore, Maryland. But nobody cares because Sovereignty, who won the Kentucky Derby, has decided not to race in the Preakness. And one of the main reasons that I guess the trainer has decided to skip the Preakness is because for these horses, it takes so much out of them to train and race for the Kentucky Derby. They're really just not going to be available a couple of weeks later to race in the Preakness. Now, Sovereignty will race in the Belmont Stakes, but nobody cares because the Triple Crown is now officially done. Sovereignty won't race. Nobody cares. Nobody's watching. President of Pimlico comes out yesterday and says, hey, look, it's time to change. We got to push everything back. We got to push the Preakness back 1 week. We got to push the Belmont back 1 week. We need to keep the Triple Crown alive. And I got to tell you, folks, I think this is going to happen. I mean, horse racing itself is, not as nearly as popular as it used to be. I know it still has a lot of backing, but this is actually a great idea. Make sure they're all still racing in this, especially the horse that won the Kentucky Derby. You kidding me? Not racing in the next one? That'll do it for the show. Thanks again to Brady Kannon, Adam Kaufman, of course, for coming on the program. And thanks to Bill Bender as well. In addition, thanks to our director, Luke, and for my producer, Frank, I'm Craig Mish. Make sure you stay tuned because Smiley Kaufman's got the latest of the PGA Championship coming up next. And then Scott Farrell, 3 o'clock Eastern, coast to coast. See you tomorrow on our next edition of NewsWire, exclusively here on SportsGrid at 11 a.m. Eastern. Have a great day.